I don't know why we've allowed ourselves to be saddled with such useless people in charge, but we had little option. I mean, we certainly couldn't have allowed the Tories to continue. But one thing is for sure, Rachel Reeves' disastrous anti-business budget is worse than anything that poor Liz Truss is often blamed for. In my view, Rachel Reeves must go.
It's over for Rachel Reeves. After her recent list of blunders, people are furious. Is she simply incompetent or just out of touch with reality? Nana Akua launched a brutal attack on her, exposing all her lies and then demanding that she should resign. The Labour Chancellor got utterly humiliated and there's nowhere to run from her horrible policies.
Rachel Reeves is a disaster and Keir Starmer's leadership is shambolic. The other day, I went to PMQs, that's Prime Minister's Questions, and I can see why they call it that, because it was just questions. There were no answers. They don't ever answer a flaming question.
Rachel Reeves was caught lying on her CV, but that's just one of her many disasters. It's as if Starmer handpicked her to make the worst possible economic decisions possible. They tried to cover it up by deflection and avoiding answering questions, but it never seems to end well for this government. People are angry and they're demanding change. In fact, that there's a new petition and support for it is insane. Rachel Reeves thought not answering questions would keep her safe, but the way things are looking, she's on borrowed time.
Now, the Labour government haven't got a clue how you or I really live. Their Westminster bubble insulates them from the real world, and I suspect they thought that their stonking majority enabled them to carte blanche do whatever they wanted without our consent. Things many of which they did not mention in their manifesto.
Labour's manifesto that they promised to us during the elections has become a joke at this point. At the heart of it were the economic policies that Rachel Reeves was supposed to implement but failed to do so at every turn. Instead, she went ahead and did things that show that she has no idea what she's doing. She has no clue how to deal with internal or external problems that have risen. For example, Putin's threatening war and Rachel Reeves is busy fighting with farmers. Living a cushy life, Rachel is completely ignorant of our problems, so there's no point in expecting her to solve them.
I suspect Rachel Reeves thought that she could get away with foisting this anti-business budget that risks destroying food security by attacking our farmers' inheritance, energy security with Ed Zero's nut zero, £22 billion energy policies, the same size as the supposed black hole, energy policies which make us all poorer with the con that is carbon capture, education, attacking our private schools, making them even more elitist, our pensioners risking their health with which Labour's...
Nana is not going to let Rachel Reeves get away with the mess that she has created. The budget that was supposed to be all about growth is anything but that. It completely clobbers everything that could potentially improve the economy of this country, from wasting billions on useless green energy plans to new taxes and regulations that make it a complete nightmare for businesses to run in peace. The supposed black hole that Rachel Reeves keeps complaining about is one of her own creations, and it gets worse the more you look into it.
I mean, they don't know whether they're coming or going. We are on the brink of World War, and frankly, not answering questions isn't good enough. Our politicians need to sort out the mess that we all find ourselves in, with despot leaders, Vladimir Putin appearing to be threatening nuclear war. Now is not the time to be announcing defence cuts.
At a time when we're on the brink of a global war, Rachel Reeves thought it was best to announce defence cuts. That's right, Putin is threatening nuclear war, and Rachel wants to take away funding from our defence budget. Defence isn't the only thing her budget is disastrous for. Even businesses are crumbling as Rachel Reeves and Labour in general seem to hate the private sector businesses.
Why we've allowed ourselves to be saddled with such useless people in charge, but we had little option. I mean, we certainly couldn't have allowed the Tories to continue. But one thing is for sure, Rachel Reeves' disastrous anti-business budget is worse than anything that poor Liz Truss is often blamed for. In my view, Rachel Reeves must go.
It seems like a lack of common sense or just genuine incompetence from Rachel Reeves, and that's something typical of the Labour Party. They talk about a big game but have no idea what to actually do. Nana demands that Rachel must go, and she's not alone anymore. Labour has made a lot of enemies in just a few months.
I mean, look, they left us with a £22 billion hole, and, you know, this is something that was totally unexpected. This is something that's only when Rachel Reeves got the keys to number 11 and she was able to look at the figures and you know, actually sit down and have a look.
Well, that's what she's saying.
Oh, my God.
Yes, but Richard, that's what she's saying, that they could have found more information
Look, there was
out.
a lot of mismanagement.
But also, let's not forget the £22 billion investment they're planning to put into carbon capture, which has failed everywhere it's ever been tried.
The excuses that Rachel Reeves uses have long been debunked. It has been revealed that there is no such £22 billion black hole, and Labour was aware of the truth for a long time. They simply used it as a cover-up for Rachel Reeves's disastrous plans. But that wasn't nowhere enough for Rachel, and now the £22 billion black hole has been increased to a much higher number.
What about the hypocrisy of Rachel Reeves, where she clearly knows that NI is damaging for business? You hear her saying that in her own mouth, with her own words, in Parliament, and now she's doing it.
I think what previously the policies and things that were discussed during the election period and so on, none of those accounted for the black hole that we've inherited. None of those accounted for the mismanagement of public funds. And I think, look, we've got to find ways of raising funds really quickly. And this was a really quick way to do it.
They continually double down, and Nana's reaction is clear. She knows that they're lying. Rachel Reeves was against raising national insurance and promised not to do so. Now, she's in charge and has done exactly that. It's as if she loves breaking promises, and nothing that they say is consistent. How can she claim that her budget is for growth when it clearly damages businesses? Even Rachel has herself admitted that it's a horrible idea, calling it a tax on employment, the consequences of which will be long-lasting and devastating for all of us.
Rachel Reeves says that there is this £40 billion black hole in public finances, and she believes that that needs to be filled before Labour can start really talking or thinking about growth. She wanted to raise taxes now, right at the beginning of their term in office, in the hope and expectation that a little bit further on they could start doing measures that would increase growth. But there are lots of economists who say, actually, what she's done in this budget risks seriously pulling back on growth. And that seems to be what's happening.
What started as 22 billion is now 40 billion. According to Rachel Reeves and the way she's operating, the number will keep growing. It's all just an excuse to tax us more. Pretty much every economist says that her plan for growth will bring anything but growth. There's way too many taxes and regulations that make it impossible for businesses to turn profits. Of course, Rachel wouldn't know anything about that since she lied on her CV about being an economist.
Now, during the general election campaign, Rachel Reeves promised not to raise national insurance for employees, along with, she said she wouldn't raise income tax or VAT. But she left herself a little bit of a loophole, and she's made good on that loophole. She has raised national insurance for employers. Now, what that means is that come April 2025, anyone who employs anyone will have to pay more towards the sort of national pension pot. And businesses are mitigating against that because they can't afford it.
Her dishonesty is baffling. Rachel Reeves intentionally left that loophole to fool all of us. She promised not to raise taxes on working people, but that was just a lie to gain support. The moment she was given free rein over Britain's economic policies, she started exploiting every single loophole possible to sneak in as many hidden taxes as she could. Nana is completely justified to demand that a dishonest person like this should quit. How can we trust a government that keeps lying to us like this?
How will Labour raise the money for all these crazy investment schemes like, for example, pylons? Let's take a look at some of Labour's plans. Now, the first one they told us about was a VAT raid on private schools, which they are planning to implement in January, mid-school year, which is always unwise, and already the collateral damage is being felt. They plan to raise about 1.6 billion, which is a drop in the ocean, so they could pay for 6,500 more teachers. That's 0.3 of a teacher per school, so it's all a bit silly.
Rachel Reeves has been incredibly generous to the public sector, agreeing to every demand that the unions put forward. Obviously, the government needs to raise money to continue their schemes, and that might be why they're against the private sector. Starmer and Rachel Reeves are trying their best to milk out as much tax revenue as they can from the private sector. After businesses, it's now the private schools that are being targeted. The sad thing is, they can't even do that right.
So to hell with the kids at private schools. Talk about the politics of envy. Most parents sending their kids to these schools do so an incredible sacrifice, and many have kids with special needs. Ironically, Bridget's plan, the VAT raid, will mean that Eton will be able to claim back £4.8 million due to a loophole which will enable them to claw back 10 years of backdated VAT.
They've accidentally left a loophole in their scheme that the private schools will rightfully take advantage of. As it is with all socialist governments, they envy the rich, and it's more of a political grudge than an economic need. The money that they're expected to raise from this plan is inconsequential. The common British people, like you and I, who've worked incredibly hard to secure a good future for our kids by sending them to private schools, are now unacceptable for Starmer and Rachel Reeves. Instead of improving public sector education, they're continuing these shenanigans.
And Labour also pledged not to increase national insurance, although rumours are that they may raise it on employers, so kind of redefining what they meant. And it also seems that Reeves is preparing a tax triple whammy, a budget raid that breaks manifesto pledges and targets fuel duty, inheritance tax and freezes income tax thresholds. And on Friday, Employment Minister Alison McGovern came up with her plan to get people back into work, but she couldn't answer how many vacancies there were.
Rachel Reeves is on a mission to break every single manifesto pledge that she has made before the elections. At least that's something she can succeed at. Every single policy is so ill-planned that there are many loopholes that this government intends to exploit later on. They redefine the terms in an attempt to sneak in more taxes, all the while thinking they can get away with it. Do they think that we're stupid?
Yeah, but you see, that's the thing. When you come up with policies and then you sort of start to backtrack when you realise the potholes in the policy. Could it end up that they don't make any money out of this at all? I mean, the objective was to raise money for these teachers. Correct. And then to put it into another pot to help state education. But if in the end what you're doing doesn't do that, then what's the point?
As I say, with the analysis we have from the IFS, the people who've looked at this in some detail, concludes that it is, well, it's uncertain how much it will make.
The attack on private schools backfired horribly. Rachel Reeves's plan was to squeeze money out of them and then fund public schools with it. While the plan itself is questionable, as people who send their kids to private schools should not bear the responsibility for the public sector education, it was doomed from the start. There's a very high chance that they won't raise any money at all. The Labour supporters keep insisting otherwise.
And what about the national insurance? Now, we're hearing rumours that they may well raise national insurance, but they'll charge it to the employers. So apparently these people aren't working people, as it were.
Well, I think that is definitely a sleight of hand, frankly. Of course, if it's charged to the employers, then it is indeed paid by the employers. It's paid by the business, not by the person. But over the long run, the incidence of this tax, as economists say, is likely to be on working people and on salaries.
We wanted a chancellor who can fix the economy, not Rachel Reeves and her endless sleight of hands. This only goes to show their dishonesty, and the consequences are already piling up. If businesses are being taxed for hiring people, of course, they're going to hire less people. This should be a no-brainer conclusion, but Rachel Reeves isn't exactly known for being very bright.
Pretty much a tax in the end.
That's people. Right. It would be continuing the tax increases that the previous government froze the tax thresholds to raise money through fiscal drag. And of course we have no confirmation, this is something which I think fairly clearly is a tax increase on working people. I don't think there's any serious doubt about that. And is probably not the best way of raising taxes in my view, but they've somewhat boxed themselves in.
Even die-hard Labour supporters are being forced to admit that Rachel Reeves is taxing working people, something she specifically said she wouldn't. So far, she has only managed to prove that she's a liar. No wonder Nana and countless others are demanding her resignation, especially the people who are directly suffering from Rachel Reeves's decisions. It's been a long time coming since everyone warned her not to make an enemy of innocent pensioners. She claims that the pensioners can still claim benefits, but does she have any idea how difficult the process is?
And Rachel Reeves doubled down on the removal of winter fuel allowances for about 10 million pensioners, many of whom will be cold over the winter, too afraid to switch the heating on as energy companies prepare to rack up their prices by 10%, which is odd really, because when the Tories were in charge, the Labour Party's own research when they were in opposition suggested that just under 4,000 pensioners would die if the Tories went ahead with the exact same plan.
Energy costs are going up, and they're already outrageous as they are. The Tories had a similar plan, and Labour firmly opposed them. In fact, their own research revealed that taking such a step would freeze thousands of pensioners. Now, Rachel Reeves went ahead and did the exact same thing. Hypocrisy at its finest. The 22 billion black hole excuse isn't going to save her from this insane decision. You might be wondering, why is she doing this? Well, that's because she's out of touch with reality.
Are old people expendable now, Rachel? Or is there some research somewhere that says otherwise? Oh, sorry, I forgot, you didn't do any other research on the effects of this policy, so we'll just have to take your word for it that 4,000 pensioners will die. But hey-ho, there's a black hole and we've got a plan. And what, to put the pensioners in it? What was that? Difficult decisions?
We're going to have to take the tough decisions and take them early, and we will.
Nana let out some incredibly seething remarks, and they're all true. Does Rachel Reeves have any idea about what she's doing? She seems to be just winging it and seeing where things go. And so far, things are plummeting along with Labour's approval ratings. It's one thing to make a difficult decision, but it's completely different to knowingly make a stupid decision. Rachel Reeves seems to love doing the latter.
Well, on that cheery note, a plan put together by people who, in the main, will never need to suffer the consequences of, because, let's face it, our MPs are pampered and don't live in the world that you and I inhabit. For starters, the basic salary of a Member of Parliament in the House of Commons is £91,346 plus expenses, and that was from April this year. In addition, MPs are able to claim allowances to cover the costs of running an office.
That's the only explanation that makes sense. Rachel Reeves has no idea about the problems and difficulties that we face on a daily basis. That is why she continues to pander and pretend that she's taking the best possible decisions. Her salary alone is much higher than the average British salary, and that's not even counting the benefits she claims.
This year alone, on top of their salary, our Chancellor Rachel Reeves has already claimed $4,500 in accommodation, $2,055 in council tax, and bear in mind they are thinking of scrapping the single-person discount, which has been very beneficial to me, I might add, as a struggling single mother, and very much needed. In rent, she's already claimed £2,280 and £100 on utilities, and these, as I understand it, are just her personal expenses.
So, Rachel Reeves can claim money for her accommodation, but the pensioners can't have the allowance? Only in Labour's twisted world does that make sense. That's just her personal expenses. The Chancellor lives a very cushy life. What would she know about the struggles of the average person?
So I challenge you, Rachel, to spend a week with a pensioner who is just above the winter fuel allowance threshold. I doubt you'd last a day. I also invite you to fill in the pension credit form yourself. Let's imagine you have arthritis, which is very common in old age, which worsens with the cold, by the way. And bear in mind, as there's a 9-week backlog, Rachel, you probably won't be seeing it very soon. So what do you think? Yeah? You didn't even, apparently, do a risk assessment on the impact of your policy. Pretty ill thought out, don't you think?
Nana knows that Rachel wouldn't be able to last a single day going through what the working class goes through, especially the pensioners. Rachel Reeves claimed that the pensioners can still avail benefits by filling out the form, but can she even do it herself? She hired an accountant, paid for by your tax dollars, to file her taxes. Someone this incompetent should just quit.
We haven't had growth in 2 months. We need to fix this. It's a serious, serious problem.
2 months since Keir Starmer took the reins, and everything is getting worse before it gets better. And he's saying that he's going to require 2 terms to do that, 10 years. He should be lucky if he lasts even 10 more weeks if this carries on.
It's been a few months since Starmer took office and Rachel Reeves was made the Chancellor, and we haven't seen growth since then. Connecting the dots from there onwards should be simple enough. The new budget that Rachel Reeves cooked up is even worse for growth, and this problem will continue as long as she is free to do whatever she wants.
This is a poll right now. We're watching it in action as it goes up, as people are voting or with their feet or polling with their feet, saying they want another general election. It's over 1 million.
This is a GB News poll?
No, it's not GB News.
Who's the polling company?
Well, it's a petition. It's a petition.
Yeah. Oh, a petition. OK. Well, let me say...
I've got a poll up on X asking that question.
No, I mean...
People are calling for another general election. That's right. They are demanding that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves should quit. The petition is gaining a lot of traction, and that just goes to show how fed up everyone is with this Labour government.
This is particularly bad because they've got this massive majority. They don't appear to be listening to anyone. And you've got it's not only just the usual suspects, but you've got people who would have naturally voted for them complaining. A lot of the pensioners, you've got farmers, you've got business owners, business leaders, everybody's complaining, and they're not listening. So if they don't listen, and we've got no power because we've got such a large majority.
This was bound to happen sooner or later, and Rachel Reeves only has herself to blame. It's not just the Conservatives, but also the people who originally voted for the Labour Party. After a series of insane economic policies, everyone, from pensioners to farmers, are demanding that Rachel Reeves should quit. They complained and the government didn't listen, so now they want the government gone. And can you blame them? especially when the Prime Minister struggles to answer simple questions.
No, it's just... I just...
A woman can have a penis.
I don't think that discussing this issue in this way helps anyone in the long run.
I mean, is anyone out there happy with this lot? In my view, there'll be nothing left if we let them run roughshod for 5 years. So is it time for another general election now?
Deflection is the Labour Party's biggest weapon, and they use it as often as they can. Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have avoided coming clean to the public time and time again, and now the people are fed up. Nobody is happy with Starmer and his gang, and it seems that a general election might be closer than you think. However, the media tries their best to hide the truth from you, and many others like you. You can help spread the truth by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Let's hold our leaders accountable.